Okay, ready guys?
I guess so.
This is Jake Ellzey. Morning. I'd like to introduce you to Mike, Denise, Bill, and Harlan, and Linda, and Marty, and you know me, I'm Morris. I've been called many things. So what we're going to do is, this has been sealed. If you will, open that, and we've got a few things in there. I got a couple of signatures. And we're going to be reading the questions to you, and there's no real interaction between you or the panel. It's just we read the question, you answer the question, and that's it. We go to the next one. So Linda, no fair telling him the answers.
I had this.
And so he's got what, he's got 2 minutes to answer, correct, for each?
For each
I'm
question.
gonna read
Are you gonna read the rules? Okay.
the rules.
Who's sharpened this?
You gonna read this whole thing?
That's my wire cutting knife,
Huh?
not that one.
Oh.
Candidate.
There we go.
That was the first test and I failed. That is funny right there. Okay, everybody's good. Christmas went way too fast. Okay, so I open this up and do what with it?
Let's review the items that's in there.
Oh, I brought, I already signed those 2 sheets and brought them in. Videotape and the rules are signed.
Read this also.
Okay.
You like to give these out to everybody. We put these respectfully in.
Once we get seated, if you'll take one and pass it down. Once we get seated, we're gonna give you 2 minutes to open. Give you your stump. But I'm gonna read these rules first. No one is allowed to be in the room except for the vetting panel and the candidate. All electronics shall be turned off except for laptops and video recorders used by the vetting panel. Cell phones or voice recorders shall be turned off in the room. No written materials or notes will be taken by the candidate. Ellis County Tea Party vetting panel and candidate agree that all questions and responses at this vetting session are to remain confidential until videos are uploaded and considered public information on the ECTP website. Verbal questions will be asked and verbal responses to those questions will be given. Answers will be limited to 2 minutes per question. Bill is our timekeeper. I've got a gavel. When the 2 minutes, 30 seconds, you get this. 2 minutes, you get this. Mid-sentence, you stop. During the video session, no follow-up questions will be asked, nor will candidate be given any explanation of the question. Candidate may request for a repeat of the question at the time the question is first asked. The candidate may request a copy of the video interview recording for a fee of $5. Recording will not be released until it is posted on the ECTP website and fee has been received.
That's the rules.
And you signed that?
I have. I've
We can
signed
take
both
that and place that on the table.
The rules and the videotape.
And now signed by Morris.
And you heard my timer?
I did.
Okay.
Hard to miss that.
You can give him a 30-second.
Yep.
For me and Marty, that's gonna give us,
The timer's mostly for me, this will be for you.
Okay, I think we are about ready. Here are these items here.
Okay.
Do we have any questions before we start? Okay, our first question Define for us the roles and responsibilities of the elected position for which you are applying, and what are your qualifications to fill these positions?
I've met the constitutional requirements to fill the position with citizenship of the state of Texas and of this district for the required amount of time. And I will be serving with as one of 150 state legislators that are swearing an oath to uphold the state constitution of Texas and the United States Constitution as well. And I believe that that includes defending the state of Texas against federal overreach, because I believe the state legislatures are the first line of defense against a federal government that is going outside the bounds of the Constitution. I also believe that there's some things in Texas that we can do better to better adhere to serving our people and providing for prosperity and for our children.
Do we want to do that? Okay, we messed up by
It's okay.
didn't offer you the opening statement.
That's all right.
So, if you want to do that, we will go.
Okay. Good morning, my name is Jake Ellzey. I'm a conservative Republican, run for Texas House of Representatives, District 10. I live in Midlothian, actually just outside Ovilla, down the road on 10 acres with my wife and two beautiful children. I grew up in the Panhandle of Texas and graduated from Perryton High School in 1988. Following that, I attended the Naval Academy and graduated in 1992, immediately entering the pilot program. I started out flying helicopters. I flew H-60s on 2 deployments in the Pacific, and then I transitioned to jets, flying Tomcats. The first Tomcat deployment was out in 9/11. I was on the Enterprise and watched the second airplane hit the World Trade Center. My first strike was on Tora Bora. And then after that, I flew Super Hornets and was in on the first week of strikes on Iraq. After that, I went to another squadron where I helped assist the folks in the tsunami in Indonesia. Following that, I went to Iraq in 2006 with SEAL Team 5 to provide air support as a JTAC. After that, I commanded a fighter squadron on the East Coast. We deployed to Afghanistan twice. I finished up my career as air boss of the Ronald Reagan. So I've served my country my entire life and have been excited to come back to Texas. And after a year and a half of being back here, I'm so happy to be here. And it's an easy transition to go from public service in the military to public service down in Austin because I have defended the Constitution with my life, and I believe that there are local folks, domestic folks who aim to do us harm, and I aim to defend against that. Thank you.
Very good.
Oh, second question. Read the second question.
Yeah.
Compare and contrast how you will do the job better than your predecessor.
How I would do it better. Well, I've only met Mr. Pitts once, and I know that he's served the district for going on 22 years now. I can't really speak to what he has done. All I can speak to really is what I will do, and that is as we talk about funding, spending money. Our country is broke, and our state is quickly going down that path because of the unfunded mandates that we have from the federal government, and also plans that we have down in Austin to provide funding for so many different projects. So I will adhere to an efficiency mindset with respect to spending money. There are certain things that the state government has to do for its people. That is without question, and one in the Constitution, one of them is provide for an efficient public education. Now, clearly, we've spent 1.5 times the amount of money as we have enrollment, and we have an equal number of administrators here in Texas as we do teachers. So when we go about talking about we need to spend more money on state education, let's take a really closer look at that and figure out where we're spending our money, because if it's not to education, then what's it going to? I'm an efficiency guy first. I think that the government should run much more like your business is run. And if you are spending more money than you have, you go broke and you go out of business. And that's the way we're going. So fiscal responsibility is my #1 goal. And then providing for the prosperity comes after that. But we are it's all of our money. And we have to be taking care of our money, otherwise it's not going to be here for our children.
The next section is from the In God We Trust section. So my question is, where do you stand on faith-based issues, i.e. abortion, sanctity of marriage, and the separation of church and state?
Pro-life from conception to natural death. Marriage, man and a woman, and that's defined in the Constitution of Texas, by the way, and that's the way it should stay. And then the last one was
Separation of church and state.
separation of church and state. That's an interesting one because I don't believe that the modern interpretive vision of separation of church and state means you shall not do anything religion related. I believe it just means that the state should not choose a specific religion, because that's what they did in England, and that's why we said we shouldn't do that. It should not deny anybody the right to worship as they see fit. You should not be have to pass a law to where you can say Merry Christmas in school. You should be able to pray in school. So the world's been turned on its head with a few people who claim to be offended by whatever. It's now the tail wagging the dog. So yes, there's separation of church and state in that we won't choose a religion, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be able to worship.
The executive branch of the federal government has been intimidating Christian churches into self-censorship. Do you agree with that statement? And if so, what would you propose to do to restore freedom of speech to the pulpits in Texas?
At the state legislature level, we can take any number of actions which ensure the sanctity of the right to speak as you see fit in the pulpit. So there's resolutions, there's laws that we can pass that, just like the Merry Christmas law in schools, we can do the exact same thing for churches. I don't know how many times the federal government's, at least in this administration, is going to keep on taking further steps, but no matter what the follow-on administrations are, it's hard to retract what they've already done. So reiterating our 10th Amendment right to do as we see fit, and reiterate the fact that the federal government has no standing on that type of issue. And it's fairly simple to do. Getting it through committee, getting it passed, I think in the state of Texas is a very doable thing. So I'd look forward to doing that, and look forward to hearing some ideas on how we can do other things to ensure that the First Amendment rights are not impeded.
Okay, a fifth question. Will you sponsor or co-sponsor legislation to allow Judeo-Christian prayer in school, including at school events?
Yes.
That was good. I like that.
What does "In God We Trust" mean to you?
Well, in my priorities, it's God, family, countrymen. Those are my priorities. God comes first. Everything that I've been raised with, up in the Panhandle, the man I am today, is because of my Christian upbringing, and I do believe in Him. I believe He's got it, and so when I worry about whether it be this campaign, my job, how am I going to provide for my kids, where are we going to send them to school, the worries that life provides, I take faith in Him and recognize that He is testing us. He wants to check our resolve. Stories abound in the Bible of that. But my issues are relatively minor, and He usually reminds me that there's always somebody who's got it worse, because I have a great life, and usually when I'm feeling down, the way he talks to me is points out somebody else who doesn't.
Do you believe that as Americans, we should allow the few non-Judeo-Christians to dictate what is acceptable or tolerable to the majority, please explain your answer.
Obviously, no, and I kind of alluded to it in the earlier question. We were founded on the Judeo-Christian ethic in the United States, and anything that prevents us from speaking about anything we want to, religion or anything else, is impeding our First Amendment rights. And those were granted to us, and they've been sacrificed by men and women of the military for years. So it cannot be limited. We cannot be limited in our freedom of speech. And Marty and I have fought to ensure that people can burn the flag, because it constitutionally, I don't agree with it, but that's a freedom of speech. I don't understand how talking about religion can be limited. However, I think there's something much more nefarious at work in that kind of limitation, and it's not just, well, you're offending me. It is an attempt to control where this country goes, and an effort by many, starting at the top, to fundamentally transform this country that we love. And I believe that is the case. And there are numerous ways when our backs are turned that is exactly what's going on. And I don't agree with it, and I'd stop it at every turn I could.
Explain your understanding of the 9th and 10th Amendments to the Constitution.
9th and 10th.
Yes, sir.
Basically, the 9th and the 10th were the bow that we wrapped the gift to the American people with. And for lack of a better term, it reiterates, it's the gift from the Federalists to the Anti-Federalists. The Anti-Federalists believed that if you didn't have a Bill of Rights, then the federal government was going to have overreach. So let's define those rights, limit the government to only the rights which we have put in there, and no others, and everything else is reserved to the 10th. So James Madison wrote both of them, and you know, the 9th says the enumeration in the Constitution of certain powers shall not be construed to deny or disparage other rights given to the people. So we very narrowly define exactly what the national government can do, and don't go outside of that. Well, obviously that is not the case. That has not occurred, and some people have actually used the Bill of Rights to say that there is wording in the original Constitution to give the federal government broad powers, and that happened about the 100-year mark in our country. That has since been reversed, but nevertheless, the federal government has taken many, many more opportunities to overreach. Now, the 10th Amendment says, hey, if the powers aren't delegated to the national government, they're delegated to the rights, or the states. The states have all the power. They're supposed to. Ironically, that has also gone the way of the dodo, and we need to reassert that, and I look forward to doing that down in Austin.
What?
He's ready to set the timer.
It's ready.
Oh, is it? Okay. Item number 9, these are under national Texas sovereignty. What will you do to protect and preserve state sovereignty?
One of the ideas that I've heard out there, which I really agree with, is with federal programs that we have signed up for and that we take money from the federal government on, we in many other states have been effectively deputized by the United States to do things that we don't want to do. There's always strings attached to the federal government and their money. And I think a good idea would be a law passed that says we'll not cooperate with any federal program at the state or local level unless it's passed by state statute. Otherwise, we're not playing. Medicare has bit us. The Affordable Care Act, fortunately, we didn't sign up for that. And we've seen what a debacle that has become, and always was going to be. So there's reasserting 10th Amendment rights and doing everything we can just out of the chute in Austin is something that I would look forward to doing. The first law that I mentioned especially. we give our hard-earned dollars to the federal government. And over the last 3 or 4 years, we've run a 3.0% of GDP deficit. And we've taken 3.0% of GDP back from the government. So we're just giving back. We are taking back what we've already been given. So it's a strange relationship.
Okay. Explain your understanding of Article 5 of the Constitution, especially the state's role.
Well, the states can basically, every power resides in the state. We can't make any treaties. Okay, got it. But we can do everything else that's accorded to us in the Constitution, and we can also have a constitutional convention or an amendment convention to fix things that we don't like, especially if we fear that the federal government is overreaching.
That was, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That was.
That's
not-
all right. My answer was just about done anyway. But all the articles are meant to ensure that the states have the power. Somewhere we got away from it, and by sometimes wartime, sometimes overreaching. Like I said, I mean, even Abraham Lincoln, when we had the Civil War, he started taking powers that didn't originally belong to the federal government, but they didn't really go away, and then they were upheld by the Supreme Court. And then every time that happens, the Great Depression, the same thing happened, and by fiat, the executive branch has gone out and gone beyond the bounds of what it's supposed to do. And once the federal government takes power, good luck getting it back from them. And so we've got a long way to go, and we've got to find the alligator closest canoe and shoot it.
What is your position regarding the use of foreign contractors for state-funded projects?
Foreign as in not American?
Correct.
I don't agree with that. No, it's pretty simple. I don't think you'll need your flag on this one, Bill, because there's no room for that. There's plenty of work to go around for American companies, and I think as part of free will, you can go buy whatever you want from China or anywhere else. As a state function, I don't believe that's correct.
All right, number 12 is, what would you propose to end the practice of converting existing highways to toll roads?
Well, for one thing, the gas tax, only 95% of the gas taxes that you pay at the pump go to roads. So let's stop sending, and some of it goes to education, some of it goes to other. So let's send all the money that we're spending at the pump, which is an exorbitant amount, back to the roads where it's supposed to go. If we had done that 2 sessions ago, we wouldn't be $4 billion in the hole on our roads right now. So now we're having to go into the rainy day fund to pick that up. Listen, toll roads, the only benefit we get from toll roads are that you get to go faster, assuming the traffic's not bad. But go on the toll road in Dallas, that's not the case, and you're still paying money. And as a way of paying for something that we're already paying for, I don't necessarily believe that's true. I think what occurs with toll roads is the law of unintended consequences, and where you start and then where you end up are probably 2 different things. Let's pay for our roads that the state has a responsibility to do with the taxes we're already paying and not going anywhere else. I don't want to play whack-a-mole down in Austin with, you're paying for your vehicle registration and your gas tax, and we're going to send it somewhere else. You should go to roads. It should go to the use that we have put in there for it. So I think that would go a long way towards solving the problem. We're still on the hole. We've got plenty of money in the rainy day fund. I don't believe in using rainy day fund for concurrent projects. That's not what it's for. It's for rainy day issues and emergencies. But I think we can do what we need to do with the taxes we're currently paying, allocate them for what they're meant for.
Explain what you think federalism is.
Federalism is what the anti-federalists fought for, what the Federalists fought for, what they came to an agreement on in the 9th and 10th Amendments, and the Bill of Rights. And that is, as we stated before, there's a few defined powers for the United States government, and it should do a very few and do them well. I didn't say efficiently, because by its nature, the national government cannot do anything efficiently. I was in the military for 20 years. We fought wars very well. We didn't do it efficiently. It's not an efficient animal. And everything happens best at the local level. You are going to decide best here at this vetting and meeting me and everybody else who's going to be best qualified for this seat. Not somebody in Austin, not somebody in Washington. Everything is done best at the local level because that's where the people closest to you, the folks that you know, are. And that's what federalism is all about. Hey, at the time, 13 states said, okay, you have a few rights to bring us all together and provide a stronger country for the general welfare. Other than that, leave us alone. And that's one of the things we have to get back to. And just do a few things well, provide for the common defense. Don't let our borders get invaded, because that's in the Constitution. And right now, I believe our borders certainly Texas border is getting invaded by narco-terrorism and by other illegals who are coming in, 60% of which are not from Mexico. And that is in the Constitution, that they defend our border, and they're not doing it. So do a few things well, and other than that, stay out of it.
The Third Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, what does it mean to you? Explain its relevance and importance today.
The Third Amendment. Refresh me on it.
I can repeat the question.
Okay. The Third Amendment. Oh, boy. You caught me off guard there. That's unfortunate. Well, I sure admire the first and second, admire all the amendments, but I'm drawing a blank all of a sudden. I just drew a blank.
What is your understanding and position regarding the Texas nationalist movement?
I've met some folks on the nationalist movement. I was at the Veterans Day. I was asked to sign a petition that asked that they want to secede. Is essentially how he explained it to me. Other than that, I've never met anybody from the nationalist movement. I believe that our government and our system are a baby that's sitting in dirty bath water. Let's not throw it all out. Let's not throw out the baby with bath water. I'm not for seceding. I've never found a fight that I couldn't give up on, or that I wouldn't continue. And I think this country and our system are worth fighting for, and have the number of problems that would occur if Texas seceded far outweigh the benefits that we would have. Are we fairly independent and self-sufficient right now? You bet. But I do believe in our country. I do believe in our Constitution. I do believe in our form of government. I would never support the aims of those who say, let's give up. Let's keep trying. We've got time.
Would you be willing to push for a convention of the states to amend the U.S. Constitution? And if so, what new amendments would you favor? What amendments would you repeal?
Good question. We're getting there. I have, in discussing this with folks as I knock on doors, I do think that there are amendments that we should look at. I do believe that the judicial system is not what it was envisioned back then, because we have a judiciary, an executive, and a legislative branch, and right now the judiciary is standing on its own as unassailable. And I don't believe that should be the case. They shouldn't be the final arbiter of everything that goes on in every law. I think some of their rulings should be overturned. So I think just to send a message, it might be time for 3/5 of the state to get together, or 3/5 of the states to get together and say, by the way, all of us agree that you've taken more power than you should have. And it's never been done. So the way to organize it and what you would actually bring up, would you bring one amendment at a time or a series of amendments, is certainly a question. But starting with the judiciary is one. Repealing any, I'm not sure about that offhand, but term limits, and I'm not sure about that. I think there's a growing sentiment from people who used to believe that the term limits were set when you have an election, who are now saying, that's not exactly working the way we thought, and we're going to have to do something else. It's not term limit, and so term limits are not in the Constitution except for the presidential term limits. So it may be something worth looking at. I'd have to look at the second and third order effects of those, and I think anytime anybody's talking about making new law, that is something you should look at, not just tactically but strategically. What are the end results of doing things like that?
And now we're going to go to the fiscal responsibility section. How should Texas continue to fund the necessary needs of government?
Well, the needs of the state government are funded just fine right now. We have enough taxes, and we have some that are onerous. I think that we should have tax relief. We are flush with cash right now. We have a lot of money coming in, both from sales tax and from taxes from oil and gas. And we've got a full rainy day fund, and I think that it's time to cut some. I also think more efficient oversight of every agency is an absolute necessity. And like I said, when we talk, let's talk about Texas Department of Transportation, and let's talk about public education funding. So those things, we need common sense approaches to, do we need to be spending all that money? Because we're not getting any increase in testing scores. We spent 1.5 times, the amount of money we've spent in the last 10 years is absolutely unconscionable, and it goes to what I disagree with at a very visceral level, and that is, oh, they're not scoring well enough, let's send some more money to it. That's just, both in higher education and secondary education, or primary education, we have as many administrators as we do have teachers. So let's do things more efficiently. Let's not change a whole lot. Let's examine what we're doing right and wrong, but let's do it more efficiently.
If elected, what would you do to eliminate the federally mandated requirements imposed on Texas?
That goes back to the first or second question on, we will not participate in any program nor pay any unfunded mandate from the federal government unless approved by statute at the state level. We can do that. It's given it to us in the Constitution. Let's stand up and give it a shot. I think we have a good, strong conservative movement down in Austin who are willing to say, yes, business needs to get done, infrastructure needs to be taken care of, but these federal programs that we're having imposed on us, and I think we've got a 5-year track record from Washington, D.C. at the very least from the current administration that they're not out to help us. They see Texas as an existential threat to the view they have of the United States. And they're coming after us with everything they've got. The DOJ is coming after us for things that it's not enabled to. The EPA is coming after us for with things that we're not, that they're not enabled to by the Constitution. The Affordable Care Act is coming after us. Medicaid, we're getting assaulted on all sides. All stop. All stop. We're not participating in any of these programs. We're okay. We know you're not, so come and get us. Or come and take it, rather.
My turn, right? What would justify using the Economic Stabilization Fund? And explain your answer.
You mean the rainy day fund?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, that is that is absolutely, I like the rainy day fund better. We have natural disasters all the time that money is supposed to go to. We don't use it for concurrent projects. We don't use that as an alternate funding method for any of the projects that the state has. So they left it up in November, they put it up to the voters. Are we gonna use this for the water? Yes, but that just means that we hadn't been taking care of it 10 years before, 20 years before. Water specifically is a generational issue. You have to plan today for what you're gonna have 30 years from now. The reason that we have less water is because people are moving here in droves and they're driving more. So they're using the roads, they're using more water, and we're not building up for it. So our success is a double-edged sword, and it's bringing everybody here. So we need to plan ahead for that. And so we need to plan for 30 years out down the road. And right now we're playing catch up. So like I said, let's cut back on some things that we don't need or aren't running efficiently. Let's do the Sunset Commission like it's supposed to be and do it on merit based. Do we need these programs and not politicize it? Save money where we can. But the rainy day fund is, or we give it back. I think that, you know, by law, you've got to have a certain reserve in there based on revenue. But you know, it's growing and growing faster. So let's give some of it back. Otherwise, let's use it for keep that reserve. I like having that fund around. Thank you.
Should there be attached to every legislative bill a financial impact study on the economy and job? Explain your answer.
Would you repeat that question, please?
Should there be attached to every legislative bill a financial impact study on the economy and jobs?
I certainly think that there's probably some bills that don't have a far-reaching effect, but if they do, yes, I didn't pay you for that question, but I promise I didn't. But yes, when we talk about second, third order effects, you have a tactical bill. There's going to have strategic impacts to it. So ever since I've been in the military, every action you take, it doesn't just mean you move your aircraft from there or you drop that bomb there. There's other far-reaching aspects to it. Then those ought to be examined downrange for what the long-term impact is. The margins tax is a prime example, is that we're going to get this amount of money and it's not going to hurt business. Well, they didn't get the amount of money that they thought, and businesses stopped coming because there are states surrounding us that have better, in some cases, better business atmosphere than Texas does because of the margins tax. So absolutely, it didn't bring enough money in, and it's preventing business from coming in and preventing our growth. So that's a great idea, as long as it doesn't cost too much.
Okay, now we're moving into personal responsibility.
Okay, I hope I can answer this one, Mike.
Would you support drug testing for recipients of any and all Texas state assistance programs? Explain your answer.
Doesn't need much explanation, that's a yes. That's been tried before, and I think it didn't pass, but whatever happened, I thought it was a great idea. Absolutely. It's your money, so why would you give it to folks who aren't capable of using it, aren't using it in the right way? Yes, absolutely yes. We'll make that one a quick one. And that's why the 10th Amendment is so powerful. Roger, national government, you don't want to do something like that. It's going to offend somebody, and you've got to get your votes. So here, hand out, give the money. I don't work that way. It's your money. It's not the government's. So you spend it as you see fit. And if there is somebody on assistance, which we ought to look at what kind of assistance we're given to, but if we're giving money to somebody, there's strings attached. There's always strings attached to free money. So the string attached is here, you're clean. Otherwise, you don't get it.
Question 22, what is your motivation for running for a $600 a month job?
The money. That's your money. I guess it's the epitome of putting your money where your mouth is, or the lack thereof. And if you believe in something, then you do it regardless of the consequences. The Founding Fathers did what they did to great detriment to their economic well-being, their health, and sometimes their lives. Just getting a pay cut and not getting paid much to do this should bring out those of us who want to do this because we love this state, we love this country, and that's what I believe in. And after 20 years in service of defending against foreign enemies, I believe there's some domestic folks here who are trying to do us harm. And since July 6 of 1988, I have taken the oath to support and defend the Constitution, except for the last 2 months when I resigned from the Texas Veterans Commission to run for office because I had to. So for only 2 months in the last 26 years have I not been under oath to protect and defend. It's a way of life for me, and I'll do whatever I need to do to provide my voice because I'm doing it with integrity. I don't do it for economic gain, clearly, and we're at a tipping point at the national level. And we're not far from that at the state level because of what the federal government is doing to us. And Texas is strong, and we're getting stronger, but there are things we can do better, and I'd like to participate in that.
Okay, this next section is rule of law. With the understanding that the federal government has shirked its duty to protect Texas border, what would you propose to curb the flow of illegal immigration?
Well, I've got a friend on the staff at DPS, and I called him a couple months ago. So what can we do? Let's just leave the federal government out of this. Let's leave the Department of Homeland Security, whatever that means, out of this thing. He said, well, we're already conducting searches, and when we do that, we make the street price of whatever narcotic, of all the narcotics, go up. The price is double, and we've shut down the border from illegal immigration. So the Department of Public Safety is already surging on the border, and I use the term surge because it's easier to identify with folks after the Iraq War surge. Folks recognize that, but it's an interagency operation headed up by the DPS with other local law enforcement and sometimes federal to go down to the border and sit there and see what happens. And it's shut down the border effectively. At the legislative level, we're going to have to continue to provide for that. Also, having been in the military in my job as an aviator, there are technologies that currently exist, and in fact I came back from Afghanistan a couple months ago. We spend a lot more time securing the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan than we do our own. There are technologies out there that are available at a relatively inexpensive price. It doesn't just take boots on the ground, and it doesn't just take a fence, because if you have a 15-foot fence, you've got tunnels that are 20 feet lower and 16-foot ladders. So it's boots on the ground, technology, a fence, and you know where they're coming in. So you patrol those places with boots on the ground. If we have to use the National Guard on occasion, then we do it. I would rather not, but we're in desperate times. Narco-terrorism is a clear and present danger. We know what that means. Clear and present danger to the security of the United States of America. both with drugs and with terrorism coming through those borders, and it has to stop. It's going to be at least 2 years before the feds take any role in that.
Okay, do you believe that the US Constitution is a living, breathing document?
No?
Explain your answer.
No, it's not living, breathing, because if by that you mean, well, it changes with the times. No, ma'am, I don't believe that. I'm an originalist. I believe that what they believed back then, you can translate those words that they used. You can do that and get back into the writings that they had, the speeches that they made, and get into their minds and go, what did you mean by this? So I go back to that. I'm not an anti-traditionalist. I think we should go back to a few things. Now, we can't erase all that's been done over the last couple hundred years with the snap of a finger. Like I said, you have to go after the alligator closest to the canoe. So states' rights starts first, then we start dismantling programs that are non-constitutional, extra-constitutional, however you want to talk about them, as well as agencies. Then we start getting into the Parks and Wildlife. We get into EPA. Where is that in the Constitution, and where was that even in the intent? Yeah, they knew we were going to grow, but when you start doing lawmaking by fiat, by an agency that is not elected by the people, we've gone way outside the bounds. So I think I went a little tangential there, but no, it's a few things that you have to do them well, and then leave us alone.
This section is.
Next section is limited government. Do you have any ideas or proposals to cut spending or the size of government in Austin?
Oh, yeah, and it's mainly prove that you're worth it. I look forward to getting down there and finding out, DOT, okay, I got that we're $4 billion in the hole. Why? We've all been on roads that were just fine a year ago, and they're redoing them. And then we get on roads that are not so good, and you're going, why hasn't this been fixed? Let's talk about Walnut Grove in 1387, where there's a new high school. Why hasn't that been fixed? Why hasn't it straightened? I know it's straightened, but it's taken way too long. It's the most dangerous road I've ever been on. So DOT, who's running the show? When you feed at the trough all the time, you don't care what it comes from, and you know what comes out the other end is always the same. So we have to be more efficient. We have to provide water, so granted we're spending money on that. I always get leery of something when they say it needs $300 million. I'm not buying that, because that's not an accurate enough number. Everything has a cost. When you go to buy your car, does it cost $10,000? No, it costs $7,900. It costs the maker $7,624.35 to make. So it's easy to throw around big numbers, and I'm always leery of that. So I want, in reference to your question, what's the economic impact? Let's find out exactly how much it costs and not go over. Not go over, because that's how we've gotten into trouble. Well, we'll just give it an extra 10%. And after that, after a long time, that accumulates, and then we're spending way too much money. So every program is up for review, Harlan, every one of them. So, and I'm not well versed enough on where all the money goes right now to find out where we can cut, but absolutely. There's always commissions that don't have any standing anymore. There's always programs that are complete, and you stop giving them money. It's our money, and I don't want to give them any more than I have to. Neither should you.
My turn again? Where in the U.S. Constitution is the separation of church and state defined?
It's in, that term's never used. But in the First Amendment, when you talk about freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of speech, it's basically emphasizing that there's not going to be a state, a national church, but it doesn't say anything about separation of church and state. I can't remember where that term came to popularity. I honestly don't, but it doesn't really, it's a misnomer. Because it doesn't mean you should separate them. It just means don't pick one. So but over years, you know, those lines get blurred, and so therefore, if government is so big and has so many things going on, we're all low information voters now because we can't possibly know everything that's going on. Back in the founding fathers, they knew there are a few things that you did, that the government did, and so there were very few low information voters, right? I mean, the government didn't do that much. They all knew what exactly was going on, and that term never came out, and they worshiped freely. It was never an issue. And then secular humanists got involved, and 2 generations ago, 50s and 60s, and started turning the world on its head. And it was all part of a grander agenda. It wasn't just religion. It's a grander agenda to make our country different than what the founding fathers were. They come over here from other places wanting to make it what it was where they came from. No, we've got our own standards, we've got our own lives, we've got our own way we set this country up. Don't try to change it. The only way you can do that is through an amendment, and you'll never get there. So they're doing it other ways, and it's sad.
Do you have any ideas or proposals regarding the property tax issue in Texas?
I did not pay her for any of these questions, but you just hit on one of my favorite topics, and that is property tax. It's an onerous tax. It doesn't take into account whether you can pay or not. It's always there. Is it a rent from the state? Some would argue that yes, you're renting from the state if you pay property tax. Can you transfer that directly to a sales tax? No, but I do think it needs to be looked at. There's better ways that we can raise the revenue that we need in this state without enforcing the revenue tax, because it's some people pay it, some people don't have to. Even if you rent, yeah, it's said that you pay, but my property is my property. I don't want it to be state property, and I don't want it taken away, because my property rights are one of the main reasons I'm a Texan, and that's one of the main reasons we all want to be homeowners. And it's a prohibitive tax in that folks can't afford property tax, they can't afford to buy a home. So we all want home ownership. That's where most of our wealth is, and that property tax and local districts have an inherent interest in making those properties evaluated as highly as possible, because that's how they're going to get more revenue. So it is an issue. I have never said that I'm the smartest guy in the room. I'm just a fighter pilot who wants to serve my country and my state. But I know a bad idea when I see it, and I don't think the property tax as it is now is what it was envisioned as back. So you got second, third order effects again, and it needs to be reformed. It definitely needs to be reformed. I'm not sure about completely doing away with it, but we need to fix the property tax issue.
Quack.
What are your views regarding nullification of overreaching federal statutes?
It's a question that comes up an awful lot, and I don't think there's agreement even amongst originalists that nullification is a right and proper option for the states. I'm not sure where it is. When we're starting to talk about nullification, that just amplifies how far off the tracks we've come. If you're having to talk about nullification, and of course Jefferson and Madison both talked about it. They both talked about them while they were still in power. In Kentucky, but even when they came up with, when Jefferson came up with the Kentucky nullification issue, none of the other states passed it. The majority of the folks don't. At this point, I don't believe in nullification. I don't believe it's a right and proper use of the 10th Amendment, states' powers, and I'll probably get some folks who are going to disagree with me on that one. But at this point, I don't see the tool, I don't see the mechanism for nullification at this point. But it does worry me that we're now to that point. That's just a danger sign. Because if we talk about states' rights, as we talk about what can you do, and some people finally say, I've had enough. we're not playing the game anymore. You've already made the rules, so we nullify. I get the philosophy. I just don't happen to agree with it at this point. And I don't know if we even talked about it, but nullification means we're going to nullify any law that comes down from the national government. And at the state level, we're going to say, nope, we're not doing it. But I think we do, like I said, pass laws that say we're not participating in these programs. I think that's a good way to go about doing it before the nullification issue comes up. So, thanks for the clarification.
Question 29, would you be in favor of legislation enforcing laws allowing surveillance of Americans in Texas?
No, sir. This is, oh, man, you want to start talking about Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment issues, 14th Amendment issues. No. We're already all on the grid. Everybody already knows what we're doing. The surveillance issue should be at the border. There should be no surveillance of Texas citizens. It is not, I'm glad you brought it up because it goes to a much larger picture is that well, the federal government's doing it. They're tracking your metadata. I don't care if my name's not attached to it. It's my data. It is my privacy, and I don't want you tracking it. And we haven't solved any problems with it. You just have a big data collection, so you know what numbers I'm calling. You can lawyer that all day long. You and I both know there's an invasion of our privacy, and I'm not going to stand for it. I fought foreign enemies for 20 years so I could come back home and live privately the way I want to, teach my children the way I want to, send them to schools I want to, and live out on my 10 acres and not be bothered. And there is literally no need. I am not going to give up any of my privacy for safety, ever. Not my, the gun rights issue. It's a safety issue. No, it's not. It's privacy, and you guys are impeding on my privacy, my right to do what I want to do. And by golly, I fought for it for 20 years, and I'll be danged if you're going to take it away from me by saying, well, we're just surveilling. I ain't buying it, neither should anybody else. There's no common sense attached to that idea.
And we're down.
You hit a nerve there, Morris.
We're down to the last question.
Dang.
All right. How many articles and how many amendments are there in the U.S. Constitution?
Well, good. Can I redeem myself just a little bit here? There's 7 articles, and there's 27 amendments, 1 preamble. So, it's they're there for a reason, and other than the 18th and its repeal, they all are supposed to fortify the idea that this is a federalist system, and the states have all the powers that aren't delegated to the national government in the Constitution. And it's a short document. It's a short document, and there's not long amendments. It's an easy read. You can read it in an hour. You may not understand all of it, but it's very simple to read. And now we have a tax code. We have a law code that's this big and getting bigger every day because we have a full-time legislature that feels like in order to earn their money, they need to pass more laws. And nobody's checking to see if it's constitutional. Barack Obama has changed 14 times his signature legislation, the ACA. 14 times. Call it illegal, call it unconstitutional. Either one, take your pick. They're both, it's illegal and it's unconstitutional. Where's the outcry? We haven't had a budget in 5 years. You don't live without a budget. None of us here live without a budget. I have to plan my budget, and if I go outside of it, I'm done. It's supposed to be a pretty simple document. I don't know how we got here. I don't know how we got to where we are today. Why are we having to discuss the issues we talk about, nullification? Some folks talk about secession. We've come way off the tracks if we've gotten to that point. So it's time to start shooting some alligators close to the canoe. And there's a bunch of them. But from the state level, I do everything I can to help us do that. And also to improve the independence of Texas. And we've always valued our independence, both economically, with respect to power, with respect to energy, everything that we can have self-contained in the state of Texas so that we thrive. And while everything else is not doing so well, we're surviving. And I'm proud to be a Texan for that very reason, because we're doing good and we can do better.
That one's real.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
You can have a minute to final word,
Okay.
if you like.
Well, I have really enjoyed, as I've run for office, starting to get back into the books on what our country means, what our Constitution means, and meeting people and finding out what the people of District 10 are interested in. So I've hit 700 doors so far, on my way to 3,000. I think I can hit that goal, and there's a lot of mad people out there. One of the reasons I moved to District 10 is because it's so much like where I grew up, and that's in the Panhandle of Texas. Small town values, folks who want to work hard, pay a little bit of taxes for the services that they receive, be left alone, raise their families, and pay attention to what's important to them, and that is family and independence. And so I would be honored to serve this district down in Austin. If it's not, we're going to send somebody good anyway. So thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now you're gonna go home and find out what the Third Amendment is.
Dang it. I didn't think there'd be one of those where it just,
That's one how.
and you know, when I was sitting out in the pickup, I was going over all of them again.
Oh,
Want to turn it on?
oh, we
That's
turn
it.
it.
Not yet.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Only one man walked on water. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Lauren.
Pretty good at it, right?
You can't even.
So it's a good
stand.
time. It went fast. What was that, an hour?
An hour.
That's not bad. That's not too much talking. So, thank you all very much for your
Thank you for
time.
coming.
Thank you.
Had some good answers, babe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Now I'm gonna go study.